So the special prosecutor himself is under pressure, and then its office itself is now a subject of a debate, whether or not to scrap it or to strengthen it. That's a debate that we're going to have tonight, but also try and unpack a few of the key issues that have led us to this very point. So this whole thing started off with the calls for the removal of the special prosecutor, Kise Jabe. And this was led, as you may have noticed, by Martin Kpebu, the lawyer. And then last week when he was detained, arrested and charged for obstruction, as has been put forth by the special prosecutor, the office of the special prosecutor itself, it sparked a debate, guess where? On the floor of Parliament. And that is where we heard for the first time members of Parliament, including the Speaker himself, calling for the scrapping of the office of the special prosecutor. And that in itself is a pretty serious position to come to, considering the caliber of people who are making the point. The Majority Leader, the Speaker, and other strong individuals within the government, including the local government minister, was also on the floor, on his feet, arguing very strongly for its scrapping. It tells you a story. And as we know already, there is a petition that has gone for his removal. If you have the local government minister who sits in cabinet, you have Mahama Yariga, who is the majority leader and leader of government business, who sits in cabinet. At least those two very key voices in cabinet believing that the office of the special prosecutor must be scrapped. That is very ominous indeed for that particular office. Another key thing that we've now come to know is the real reasons why we're here this play out. These concerns are growing louder. One is because of the allegations that have surfaced about corruption and incompetence against the special prosecutor himself. And then we've heard accusations about abuse of power in office linked to Martin Kpebu's arrest, and many who thought the arrest was unnecessary and that it was an abuse of office and power. Many have also drew parallels between that and what we saw with the host of Good Evening Ghana when he was also arrested by the OSP. People have drawn parallels with that and saying it shows that the OSP was using his office and abusing it and pursuing issues of personal vendetta against these individuals. At least these are allegations, but it has fueled these conversations that has led to this debate about whether to scrap or to maintain. And then you had the accusations that he's failed to conclude any case since he came to office, the limited outcomes that we've seen. Now, what the OSP has decided to do is to put out some facts. One of the key facts that they've put out, and again, that relates to that last point there about the slowness of the cases before the courts, limited outcomes, failure to conclude high-profile cases. The OSP has been fighting back with its own set of facts to make the point that they have a total of 7 convictions so far. And they say, obviously, cases before the courts, they grind slowly, but they did grind to an end. They have 7 of them. And 8 years it has been since we created this sole anti-corruption fighting agency. The corruption fighting agency called the OSP was solely set up to handle corruption and corruption-related offences. It just has been 8 years. And already, members of parliament wanted scrap. Why? Is it self-serving? That they put in this out because politicians, as you know, are mainly the individuals who are caught in the web of the special prosecutor. Is there a fair there, or these are genuine calls that merits a hearing as far as the calls for scrapping is concerned? And if you look really at the other accusation that has been leveled against the office of the special prosecutor, and I heard the speaker make the point that if you look at the budgetary allocations to it and the corresponding impact, it has been negligible. In fact, the point has been made that if you look at it, it is as if we are throwing good money at a very bad problem that is not giving us value for money. Okay, so one of the comparisons that has been made, and the speaker makes it, is a comparison between the office of the special prosecutor and the attorney general. And that comparison is pretty straightforward because the powers of the OSP emanates from the attorney general. The attorney general's powers are written in the Constitution, and the prosecutorial powers, part of that has been hived off for the SP, the special prosecutor, to use in prosecuting only corruption-related offenses. And so if you look at the budgetary interplay and the dynamics there, it may give you an indication where the state's focus is. And the red line here is the budgetary allocation that has been given to the AG's office, and the blue line is for the OSP. And you see here, the gap is pretty significant for 2026. That's the latest budget available just yet, which was just read by the Finance Minister last time. They're talking about some 677.2 million giving to the Attorney General, and you're talking about some 158.9 million. So the gap is pretty wide in terms of the allocations there, because the Attorney General's office is dealing with a whole host of cases. In the case of the Special Prosecutor, he's dealing with only corruption-related offenses. And the reason why this is important is I've heard people make the argument that, yeah, I mean, if you really look at the budgetary allocations, we're giving almost the same to the Attorney General as we're giving to the SP. That isn't true, because the evidence here shows it. In fact, you have to go way back to the year 2020 to see the narrowing of that gap there, where you have the Attorney General's office was giving 136.6 million in the 2020 budget, compared to the Special Prosecutor, which had 138. But remember, at the time, the office was just being set up, and so they needed a lot of resources to get it up and running. And that explains why they had that amount of money at the time. And then you also come to 2019, the year after it first became an institution created by law. You saw there that the Attorney General was just 135 million allocated in the 2019 budget. And then you come to the OSP itself at the time, had 180 million. So yes, historically, since it's been created 8 years ago, in 2019, 2020, it had more budgetary allocation to it than the Attorney General's office. But since then, you've seen that story doesn't hold, because the gap has widened as the SP's functions in office become more established and settled. We have less and less budgetary allocations to it in comparison to the Attorney General's office. But again, if you look at it though, the budget allocation to the SP has been growing over time. So the government have been giving it quite a bit of money. If you look at it by itself, it hasn't stagnated, it's been climbing. 2026 is the second highest in its history, in its 8 years history since it was created. You have 158. The last time you can come to that, any close to that, is 195 million under the previous government, under the Akufo-Addo government in 2022, a significant amount of money there. This government has given it the second highest allocation just yet. But again, in 2026 is the highest in the last 4 years. So again, this government is putting a lot of money into the SP. And if they say you put your money where your mouth is, where your priorities are, is where you put your money. Again, it shows that the government actually prioritizes the SP. They believe that it really holds the promise to dealing with corruption-related offenses. And so when you see the numbers, and then you hear key figures in government, cabinet ministers make the point that it should be scrapped. You begin to ask the question, personal opinion being expressed there, members of parliament, but also members of cabinet expressing views that may not necessarily be backed by government's own show of commitment as far as the budget allocation is concerned. Just to lay out the point for you in terms of where government is putting its money over time and how it compares. And then you look at how the OSP compares to the other anti-corruption bodies like SHRAJ, for example, total. So the OSP, since its creation, has had 1.1 billion cedis thrown at it, pumped into it from the budget. And in that same period, you've had, 2018 to 2026, SHRAJ just had 526, half of that, right? 529, half of that. And you have the YOCO, even smaller. But you begin to hear voices now say they believe, and Manasa Zuriwini has said that, they believe that the YOCO, which is getting the smaller of the amount when it comes to anti-corruption bodies, 362 million in the last 8 years. People say, well, they believe that EOCO has more teeth to bite and is doing a far better job than the OSP. This is a fascinating graphic, just showing you there over time in an 8 years period. As far as the anti-corruption bodies are concerned, SP is in second place, beating Shraj, and as you see there, EOCO, that is the amount I'm talking about. 1.18 billion is what they have received so far in the last 8 years. And then you look at there's what has been earmarked and budgeted for, and then what has been actually allocated. Only 50% of the amount I've been talking about actually went to them. So this is what you really work with. So if you're getting 50% of the amount, that definitely affects its ability to function fully. You have to come to that conclusion, because there is a reason why they ask for a certain amount of money to do its work and operate at the optimal level. But if you give them 50% of that, then you're expecting that, of course, there will be areas where they cannot really meet the expectations as they had budgeted for a particular year. Now look at the challenges that they faced at the time where they started. It took some time for them to take off. I mean, setting up was difficult, staffing issues, so it was very slow. And Martin Midu was there, and he resigned. And now we are talking about another SP who is under pressure. This time, there is a petition to remove him. And then you look at the broad cases that they've initiated, 70 they say. 7 of them they secured convictions for. Very important matter indeed to consider. Now, what are the arguments for the establishment of the Office of the Special Prosecutor? Let's remind you the history. It's just been 8 years. It's just been 8 years. One wanted to address the issue of political interference, because the Attorney General is appointed by the President. He's a politician more often than not. And so you expect that he will protect his political friends. And so we said, let's have an independent office of the Special Prosecutor. We don't add independent to it, but that's what it's supposed to be, right? To deal with that. And the previous measures were inadequate. They didn't quite deal with it. Existing agencies lacked the full prosecutorial power. Some of them can't prosecute. So give the prosecutorial powers to this independent body to do just that, deal exclusively with corruption, so that we can restore public confidence. Clearly, from what has been happening, and we must do a poll to measure this, it appears in a court of public opinion that confidence in the SP may be winning, and that is dangerous. And it's the guys who are corrupt who are laughing all the way to the bank, because it is in their interest to see this debate happening. Questions about the Office of the Special Prosecutor, questions about the SP itself. We need to weigh, so who benefits here? And we must do something very decisively, immediately. How do you restore the public confidence? We have 3 petitions currently asking for the Special Prosecutor's removal. In itself doesn't help. 3 of them. Once the prima facie case is established, it's going to be a very interesting journey indeed, considering that the petition goes, the President has forwarded it now. The Chief Justice is going to look into it and decide whether there's a substance there for any investigations. Once he makes a decision, the committee, a 3-member committee will be established to look into it. The committee has 90 days to work and come up with its recommendation. The President will be bound by the outcome of the committee's work. And whilst all this is happening, we shouldn't be surprised that our corruption perception rankings has been dipping over the period. That's a graph there. It's in red and over the last period in 2020. It shows that something fundamentally is wrong with our approach to dealing with corruption. My guests are joining me. A big conversation about what do we do with the Office of the Special Prosecutor. Should we go the way that the Speaker and others are suggesting to scrap it, or should we strengthen it? And if you're going to strengthen it, how do you do it? I guess weighing after this. And thank you very much for staying with us here on PM Express. It is always brought to you by Syntax Tanks. It is strong, it is tough, and Academic Times newspaper, as well as Pepsodent Cavity Fighter toothpaste. And if you're talking about water tanks, you must know that the secret to real storage is the tortoise on that tank. That's the correct tank to look for. It's the Syntax Tanks. It's the right tank for you. The champion of water tanks. It is strong and durable and built to handle the Ghanaian weather. Rain or shine, Syntax Tanks is strong, they're tough. And then look out for the Academic Times journal when it is launched, because it is curating academic research for you to find easily. Tonight, just before you sleep, you need to look for Pepsodent Cavity Fighter, because that is the way to guarantee a stronger, whiter teeth. My guest joining me for a conversation tonight on this very important subject, Nene J. Bafewa, is a member of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament, MP for Menchia South. Also joining me in the studio is Samuel Okudzeto, is a former council.
Well, myself, Samuel Okudzeto.
Samuel Okudzeto, yes. He's a former council of state member. He's a lawyer himself. And I'm delighted to have him join us. This has become such a topical matter. Last week, we had the Speaker of Parliament weigh in. The former Speaker of Parliament has also weighed into this. Let's say Michael Quay. The current and the former have weighed in, and I'm curious to hear Lawyer Samuel Okudzeto's thoughts also on the matter. Mary Ada is Executive Director of the Ghana Integrity Initiative. It's important because civil society, they have a rep on the board of the OSP. The last time the boss of that same agency used to be a board member, so it is important to hear their thoughts on the OSP too. James Enu is the Vice Chair of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, MP for Tema West, also is in the studio with us. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. And I just want to put this in context. The conversation around the SP has been happening for some time. But I guess what really triggered a broader national discussion is when it went to the floor of Parliament. And many of the members of Parliament, senior members of Parliament, including the Speaker himself, offered an opinion on what should happen to the office. Listen.
The Office of the Special Prosecutor has abused its powers in this matter. And I will not hesitate. I will not hesitate to say that this house, we created the office. And the Office of the Special Prosecutor, if it continues to abuse its powers, then we may have to abrogate it. We place this matter on record that this house, we shall be inviting him to come and brief the house.
Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, like we say in Twi, etua onyonku mua, etua biem, etua uhumudia, etua nipem. To wait, Mr. Speaker, when it happens to somebody and he's complaining about it, you see absolutely nothing wrong with it. When it happens to you, now you complain. So, Mr. Speaker, if he wants to invite the special prosecutor to come and answer why his friend, and today he's complaining because it is his friend, the minority leader, Osahin, has been raising this matter over and over again, that the investigative bodies are weaponizing their power.
During the deliberation on the OSP, a number of us stated on the floor of this house that there's no constitutional basis. We cannot continue to allocate that huge sums to the same office when we are not getting the results. This is one of the agencies we should be looking at.
Mr. Speaker, the office has been in existence for how many years now? Close to 8 years. Tell me what is really the achievement of that office. What has been the achievement of that office? I have consistently held the position that fighting corruption is not about littering the place with institutions. It is the political commitment of those who lead that fights corruption. I believe that it is high time that this Parliament reconsiders its decision to approve the establishment of the Office of Special Prosecutor. I think that we should abolish it. I honestly think we should abolish it.
Today, the political party that opposed the establishment of the office, the member of that political party who opposed it in the 8th Parliament, today majority leader, leader of government business, in the wisdom of the Ghanaian people, they have given them a super majority. Super majority. They have majority in this house. They have a super majority.
So that is Samuel Abujunapo, whose last point there was, in essence, to say that if they have the majority, if they want to scrap it, they should go ahead and scrap it and stop talking. I want to bring in Lawyer Samuel Kujeto into this first. When you listen to members of Parliament, including the Speaker, make the call as they have, I wonder what your own assessment of the situation is. Are they justified for those who say it should be scrapped?
Well, question about justification is always an issue because it's a personal view of people. It's a question, it's what the reason that people will give for it. Why was the institution set up? That's the first question you should ask. Why was it set up? Ostensibly, to bring an end to corruption. But then you also ask yourself, do you bring an end to corruption merely by setting up an institution and putting an individual in charge? That's the question you should ask. In my view, of course, it's a fallacy. You see, corruption has become an ingrained thing in our society. Sometimes I tell people that from the Kaya hill that you see there, all the way up to the highest level, you see it being manifested. Because it has not been ingrained into our culture, the way of thinking. I always give the example of Singapore. And I had a personal experience in that regard. That's why I always cite it. That I was on the International Bar Association Management Board. And we had to take a decision because we move around the globe to hold our annual conferences. And we thought that we'll go to Singapore. Many of my colleagues says, the man is a dictator. You want us to go there. We will be seen, we, the international lawyers, will be seen to be supporting his dictatorship. This was the point they raised.
You mean Lee Kuan Yew?
Pardon?
Was it Lee Kuan Yew?
Lee Kuan Yew, yes. And I said, well, perhaps we might influence him to change if we go there. So we went. We had organized the conference. We went there, lawyers from all around the globe. And then there was supposed to be an evening with Lee Kuan Yew. So we went and we were having cocktail. Then I saw someone in a white shirt, white trousers, walked in, and I recognized him to be him. But my colleagues had no idea. So he went and sat down. Then when our leader came in to order, it was then that they realized that the person who walked in, simple person, was actually Lee Kuan Yew. And Lee Kuan Yew told us about the history of how he became a leader. He was in Cambridge. He was top of his class. He came back and saw Singapore complete mess. I think it was like that before he left. The Indians were always fighting. The Chinese will spit almost anywhere and everywhere. And then, of course, there is the Malaysians, the Malays, and the Chinese. All of them, chaos, confusion. So what did he do? He said, okay, we have to bring an end to all this. Now, everybody must go to school, up to secondary school level. If there is any riot again anywhere else, you still go to jail. You can't spit. If you spit, you'll be caned. Singapore became what? The cleanest city in the world. The discipline there is just impeccable. This is the leader. Then he told us the story about one of his ministers who accepted a holiday for himself and his wife abroad. When the information got to him, when the man came, he was arrested. He was jailed. He was sacked, first of all, and then jailed. That's his close friend. Now, that thing has got ingrained into me. And I said, if we can have a leader like that, who will take a stand against corruption, there will be no reason why there should be corruption in the country. Indeed, it's something we should have been teaching the children from the school, from elementary school, all the way up so they grow about it. Don't demand. Sometimes someone say, it is not what you think you are entitled to. It is what you can give. That's what it should be. So you're asking me this question. The question is simply this. Why was the institution set up? Has it achieved its purpose?
Has it? What would you say?
Well, I don't think so. That is exactly the issue that I'm trying to drive here.
So it hasn't achieved its purpose?
Because the corruption is still on. I see it every day, everywhere you turn. In every institution, you see it openly. They are not even afraid. People are no longer even afraid. You go there and they demand money from you to do this for you, when you've already paid. And yet they are demanding money from you.
Is scrapping in the solution, though?
Pardon?
Is scrapping the SP, the office, the solution?
Yeah, but I'm saying that that institution is not achieving its purpose. Because look at it this way. You have an Attorney General's department, is that not correct?
Yes.
In that department, they have the civil section, and then they have the prosecutorial section. This one is headed by the Director of Public Prosecution. The other one is headed by the Solicitor General. Right? Okay. Now, what is the Director of Public Prosecution supposed to do? He's supposed to prosecute criminal offenses. Which
will include corruption-related offenses.
And of course. I mean, there is nothing which makes corruption any more different than any other crime. We have Director of Public Prosecution. That is his job. So why do you create another institution to do the same job? That's the whole issue.
It's a special purpose vehicle, though, to deal only with corruption and corruption-related offenses.
You see, in other places where you have this special prosecutor, it means that there is a specific problem that has arisen. And you want that person to go there and solve that problem. Period. That's all. You don't create a whole institution for it. As we have done. If you like, you can go and search and ask yourself, where do we have that kind of institution? You see, the Prime Minister of England, do you know what his position before? You know how he got the knighthood? He was Director of Public Prosecution. You know D.F. Annan? You know D.F. Annan?
Yeah.
Who became Speaker of Parliament?
Speaker, yes.
He was Director of Public Prosecution. You bring a stalwart there, he's there. But then you forget something. If you don't have a proper inquisitorial system that can be able to investigate and provide the information, you can go to court and you lose your case. Because the lawyers will look at the loophole.
So you are with those who say, scrap the institution and power the AG's office, as in the...
Well, that is what should have been done.
Okay.
But I suspect that somebody in his haste thought that corruption was too rampant in the country, and therefore to create an institution for that purpose was a good idea. And then, of course, you appoint an individual. Don't forget, it's just an individual you've appointed. Then you are now trying to create an institution around that individual. Now, what is that individual? What is the background of that individual? That's the question I ask. What is the background? If I am going to try and select one of the most tough, what's his name, legal luminaries in the country, and said I'm giving him that job, it's a different thing. Have you ever heard the name Jeke Dako before?
Say that again?
Jeke Dako?
No, I don't. I'm sure the lawyers have.
You are too young, so you wouldn't.
The lawyers have.
Yeah. He was DPP. For many years, he was DPP. I had encountered with him. In fact, I even did cases against him and won. But he was... Everybody was scared of him. Scared of him. And then there is also someone we call a Finn, called Atafin. He was a major in the army. And then they made him a circuit judge. And when you are arrested and you go before him, the case must be watertight before you come. And they put the person in the witness box. Within a week, that case is done with, person is jailed. Everyone was scared, even to be brought before such a person. So I'm just saying that when you don't train people to do a job well, and you think that creating institutions, particularly when the thing is just an individual, is dangerous.
Okay.
It's very, very dangerous.
I'll come back to you and for you to analyze for me the architecture, because the argument was the hiving off the AG's prosecutorial powers for one institution is wrong, and that necessarily doesn't fix the problem. But then you have the individual question, which is what you raised, because he himself wants to be appointed by the president, and so then that also exposes risks.
You have your political string already attached to it.
Yeah.
You get the picture. Yeah. Because Dako was not appointed by the government to hold the position of Director of Prosecution. He rose in the rank of the Attorney General's department. And that was the reason why they gave him that particular position of director. D.F. Annan was not appointed by any government. He was a lawyer. He was employed at the Attorney General's department in the prosecution section, and he rose to become Director of Public Prosecution.
I want to bring in Mary, and I'll come to the MPs with me. Mary, the Ghana Integrity Initiative, I remember when this conversation started about creating the office, you had a position on the matter. I believe you submitted a memorandum on it. Looking back now on the position you expressed, now we've come full circle. Members of Parliament are pushing for it to be scrapped. Do you believe that we made a mistake at the time? Now we had 8 years. We have 8 years evidence. The evidence is 8 years of the administration of the office. Did we make a mistake? Is it time to roll back?
Good evening to you and to the other panelists and also to your viewers. I absolutely believe we didn't make a mistake whatsoever. Why do I say so? Does the challenge identified, or has the challenge we identified been resolved? We indicated there was an issue with the Minister of Justice, who is also the Attorney General, as we have currently per the Constitution and Article 88, which you clearly presented earlier. Has it been removed? No. And so for me, we also have a case where the NACAP 1, the National Anti-Corruption Action Plan, anticipated a different approach. And that approach was to establish an office within the Attorney General's office, or a position which would then be called the independent prosecutor, which didn't also materialize, as we know. So for us in civil society, we believed at the time that prosecuting the agenda per the restrictions within which we were operating, we needed a different mechanism. Unfortunately, we didn't have what NACAP was espousing, and the government of the day was proposing a different setup, which we also interrogated thoroughly, looking across the globe and also in Africa for some of these offices. And I must say that we did a very thorough job at coming up with the memo and also supporting the Constitutional Legal Affairs of Parliament through the various stages of developing the law. We didn't just do Ghana by analyzing what we have had after our constitution or since independence. We look at even Nigeria, which has the EFCC, South Africa, which has a very good division we call the Special Investigations Unit. We look at the Kenyan's Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, which does anti-corruption solely and is a creature of law as well. Then we looked at Sierra Leone, our neighbors or our brothers in West Africa, who are in a very special position. They have an anti-corruption commission which does that. In Ghana, admittedly, we have a constitutional creature which also does work on corruption, has a mandate of fighting corruption, and that is SHRAJ. Unfortunately, we all know the limitations of SHRAJ. So for us, we believe that at the time, the proposal was adequate, the proposal was good. So in navigating the challenges we had identified, that it was difficult for the Attorney General, who is also the Minister of Justice, to fight corruption and do it very exhaustively to his compatriots. It still remains same. And
yeah,
so for us,
except that, Mary, you started by making the point that the problems that inspired the creation of the office, they persist. In fact, some may argue some may argue that it's actually worsened over time. So, what is the problem then? Is it the occupier of the office, or the structures and institutionalization around it? Well, what is the problem?
So it is both. It is both. So we see. Let me use the RTI example, for instance, to give you what we are talking about. In the passage of the RTI law and setting up of the commission, when the law was passed, we realized that there was a 1-year cooling off period to ensure that the office was set up very well. In the case of the SP, when the law was passed, by February, the SP was appointed. He didn't have space to even operate. And so the first SP had his issues of setting up office, which office he wanted, where he was going to work with. He didn't have staff. And for about 3 years, we went up and down. So structurally, we had a flaw, a serious flaw there. And then the office of the issues around independence, either being substantive or otherwise, also remains a key problem, because we saw that in the execution of the mandate, we continue to see interference, and it led to the first SP leaving office and the second one taking office. But then, Evans, remember that the appetite of citizens as well at the time in the fight against corruption was very low, because the trust levels were very low. We thought that the politician would do what they would do to get away with what it is anyway. And so citizens' trust had dwindled. Citizens believed, and this have been entrenched by some of the cases that have come through the office. For instance, in the issue of Cecilia Dapa, we saw that this case didn't go anywhere. And then now we also have the issue of the former Minister of Finance, who is also treading almost the same path, and the trust of citizens. That's why the voices are that loud. But it remains also true that in setting up an office, we should give them time to be able to settle in, to put in place their structures.
They've had 8 years. They've had 8 years. Isn't that enough time to settle and to really take off?
Yes, it depends on what we have given them and how they are doing it. Remember,
I just showed the budgetary allocation. They've really had significant budgetary allocation. In this next year, they have 150 million.
That is very true. More than what SHRAJ is getting.
Yes.
And we say, I'm saying that in all of this, Evans, you would agree that in the fight against corruption, if we want this office to work very well, it goes beyond just the office. There is also the need for coordinating and collaborations between the other offices, like it happened when the Cecilia Dapa issue came out.
But give me your comment on...
And let me say that if you are talking about the budgets, in most of the instances, these budgets have been, they are just budgets. They remain government estimates.
That's true. That's true. And we've established that only 50% of what is budgeted for is actually allocated to them.
And if you are looking at what has happened over the past 3 years, when the special prosecutor has effectively engaged almost everybody they want on board. So if you want to measure their progress per indicator set, then it is when they have the full measure or full complement.
So as far as you're concerned, we should keep it. we should maintain it as
certainly.
it is. Okay.
Certainly, we shouldn't throw the baby with the bathwater away.
Even the fact, even in spite of the fact that they are failing, you've admitted that they.
I don't think they are failing.
Okay.
Evans, I don't think they are failing.
Okay.
I believe that we need to support this cause until we have what we want, and that is the total decoupling of the office of the Attorney General from the Minister of Justice.
Mary, stay with me. Mary, stay with me. I want to bring in the MPs here because this came to the floor. And then I want to start with you on this. So the Parliament, it was actually divided, the NDC side and the MPP side. The MPP side, you guys argued, at least those who argued from your end, believe that it's self-serving. But the NDC side were very clear that this is something that needs to go. The chief whip held that position. The local government minister held that position. Majority leader, government business held that position as well. And the Speaker of Parliament actually held that position also. I wonder, what is your position on the matter?
My position has been consistent. Personal position that the office needs to be reviewed.
Okay.
Possibly abolished. And I'll explain to you. But going back to your background, in this parliament, that's the 9th parliament, this is the first time we've heard the voices of the NDC on the OSP. This is the first time. Indeed, coming out strongly that the office should be abolished. In fact, last week, the appropriation for the OSP came to the floor for debate. And from the majority side, the members of the Constitutional and Legal Affairs who seconded the motion of the Attorney General supported and then praised the OSP. In fact, my own brother, Susu, praised the OSP, only for him to say the next day, after Martin Pebu had been arrested, that if you touch one, you touch all. And so it looks like what really egged the majority was the arrest of Martin Pebu, and not because of any other consideration. That is how it looks like. But I would want us as a nation to look at the office, not because of the arrest of Martin Pebu. He's my brother. Abuse of his fundamental human rights, makes me concerned, and I sympathize with him. But when you reduce the discussion to merely because Martin has been arrested, it becomes very sad and, becomes very default of principle.
If you look at it as an outcomes analysis, you set it up, you're looking at a certain outcome, 8 years, enough to assess an institution. Your verdict is?
My verdict is that we should not be emotional about this as a people. We should not be emotional. We have an anti-corruption architecture. The Office of the Special Prosecutor was an introduction into an anti-corruption legal framework or architecture. We should not be afraid to assess it, and where necessary, call for its abolition. It will not be the first of its kind that we are making that step. The Serious Fraud Office was established in 1993 by the Serious Office Act 466, right? By 2010, we had abolished it, even though, except that...
But we created the IOCO.
Yes, but we still abolished it. The act that established the Serious Fraud Office does not exist anymore. Serious Fraud Office does not exist anymore. And so abolition should not be something that we should be scared of, right? And when Serious Fraud Office was, IOCO was established, it was given extensive powers. And so, yes, we may create something in this place, but you cannot abolish it, right? You cannot create something in this place unless you abolish it. I've heard people say, let's merge, let's hive the powers of the DPP and merge it with the Office of the Special Prosecutor. You can only do so after you've abolished the Office of the Special Prosecutor. You cannot merge a constitutional power with a statutory power. And so invariably, even with those who are saying it should not be abolished, they are not saying it should not be abolished simpliciter. They are saying that something must be done. That tells you that there's something fundamentally wrong with that office. And so this discussion is very necessary. This discussion is not in a vacuum. This discussion is not in vain, because those who are saying that it should not be abolished...
What is fundamentally wrong with the institution?
In fact, for you to appreciate what is fundamentally wrong with the Office of the Special Prosecutor, you have to also appreciate what is fundamentally right with the office. What is fundamentally right, whether we like it or not, if you look at the powers of the Special Prosecutor under Section 4.2 of the Act, it tells you that it is the greatest anti-corruption effort that has been made. Why am I saying so? If you look at Section 4.2 of the Act, it says that the power to prosecute is under the authority of the Attorney General. The same Attorney General that we don't trust to fight corruption. The same Attorney General that we don't trust to prosecute his colleagues, right? That is politically exposed person, public office. It is under his power that the OSP prosecutes. What it simply means is that technically, even though people think that the Attorney General cannot file nolli prosequi or demand that the OSP stops prosecution, the Attorney General actually can. Because when I have the power, right, when I give you power, I also have the power to withdraw the power. And so the OSP can, the Attorney General can, under Section 402 and under Section 4.2 of the Act, it is clear that impliedly, without the power of the Attorney General, the OSP cannot prosecute. The evidence so far shows that there hasn't been a single instance where the Attorney General has withdrawn his power to prosecute. What if it effectively means is that we are committed to fighting corruption in this country. We are. What has been deficient? What has been deficient in this instance is an office that lacks focus, that lacks purpose.
Is that because of the institutional architecture or the individual occupying the position?
Because the institution will always revolve around a person, a special prosecutor, given direction to it, security of tenure of 7 years. Whatever he chooses to do, you cannot interfere with it. You cannot remove him unless there are grounds under the Act to remove him, right? And so even if he doesn't lack direction, nobody can say anything. And so if the Attorney General has the power, right, to give somebody to prosecute without interference, then the Attorney General should have the power to be able to do prosecution of the very persons that we are concerned with. Now, in the space of 8 years, we are not seeing that kind of prosecution. Do you know why? Because all the concerns about corruption in this country, particularly in the Fourth Republic, has been when the Auditor General has done its work and there are issues surrounding irregularities and the amount of money that have been lost as a result of procedural breaches, malfeasance, and various forms of corruption. For the 8 years that the Office of the Special Prosecutor has been in place, go and check its update. None. There hasn't been prosecutions emanating from the Auditor General.
But they have 7 convictions, according to
from where? From where?
It may not come from the Auditor General's report,
so,
but they have their own independently initiated
So
cases.
that is complementary.
Yes, yes.
That can only be complementary and not primary.
Yeah, but that's not necessarily a bad thing.
Well, you see, the elephant in the room, we've lost focus. And that is where the problem is. And so unless there's whistleblowing, unless there's media report, the OSP then becomes redundant. An office that becomes redundant, unless there is a whistleblowing or media report, is not a necessity.
Okay, hold on, I think it's a very important point. I want to bring in the vice chair of the committee. So your side, you're clear, at least I'm listening to your majority leader and I'm listening to your whip say abolish. I doubt you're going to say anything to contradict them. So I'm going to assume that you believe that it should be scrapped too. But why though? the accusation against your side is that this is self-serving, only because somebody who some allege maybe you see as one of who articulates views that matches with yours has been arrested, and so abolish it. And this is not sincere. This is not because of his failings in delivering outcomes that we all ascribe to. Well, first of all, how do you respond to that charge?
Thank you very much for the opportunity. And let me start by saying that it is very good that we are having this national discourse. Socrates said that the unexamined life is not worth living. And I believe that this national discourse will help us to get a solution out of the situation that we have now. Let me also start by saying that so far, I think individuals have expressed their opinions on the matter. And let me also say that government has not given a position on the matter yet, but individual MPs have made their positions clear. Yeah. And, other members of parliament also have their personal opinion. Yeah,
but when a majority leader speaks, the chief whip speaks, it carries weight. I mean,
yeah, but like I'm saying, it's their personal position for now, their personal opinion.
That's true.
Because the party doesn't have, or the government
has not expressed
a position on this at the moment.
But two cabinet ministers have expressed personal opinion that says.
Yes, I think it's important to clarify that situation. Okay, now, the conversation has been had that there are suggestions that the office should be scrapped. Some people are suggesting that there should be a merger with the office of the DPP. People have even said that the office is a duplication of the Attorney General's office.
The curious thing about it is that all these positions were expressed at the time when we're debating the creation of the office. None of the things that have been said in the last 1 week is new, actually. Yeah. The only thing is, 8 years on, we're saying, those who said, we told you so, that it's going to fail. I say, yeah, we told you that we're right. And so I'll abrogate it. Seriously, you want it abrogated?
Indeed, I think that we should have a deeper conversation. And I think that it's important to look at all the issues involved in this matter. It is important for us to look at the rationale behind the establishment of the law and look at the functions of the Office of the Special Prosecutor and look at what they have been able to do so far. And then we can judge and take a decision out of that. Of course, the most important thing that we also need to look at is whether or not we have adequately resourced the office. Because you see, if you give somebody a task to perform, it is important that you provide them with the necessary tools to also perform the task. But sometimes when we look at the issues of the special prosecutor, we don't look at it vis-a-vis the resources that has been made to the office.
So in 8 years, they've been allocated 1.18 billion. 50% of that was actually released to them. So you're talking about 500 million, they're about half of a billion.
You know the office is a new creature. Yeah. The law that brought the office into being was in 2017. And from the research I did, it looks like it became operational somewhere even around 2023, 24. Yeah, so the office has not been in existence for long. If you compare this to the Office of the Attorney General, Office of the Attorney General has been there since
the creation of the Constitution, yes.
Exactly. You know, so that has been in the system. It has structures. It is well structured with all the necessary logistics. I'm not saying they have everything, though, but it's more or better resource in terms of capacity, in terms of personnel, in terms of the structure, as compared to the Office of the Special Prosecutor. So I think that we should be a little lenient when we criticize the Office of the Special Prosecutor, especially because it's a new creature and it needs capacity building, it needs proper structures to be able to stand on its feet. And to be frank, one of the major things that has confronted the office, we went on an official visit with the OSP to meet the office. And indeed, at the end of the day, after the meeting, one of the things that came out strongly was that they were under-resourced and they were struggling.
In what area specifically?
In terms of vehicles, in terms of office space. You know, originally the idea was to replicate offices across their regions and even, if possible, even their districts. But the point is that they are handicapped in terms of resource. Even capacity building, human personnel to be able to run the office is a challenge. So even as we look at the issues surrounding the office, it's also important for us to look at the resources that is allocated to the office. Now, arguments have been made that they are being given something equal to what the Attorney General is.
The evidence says that's not true.
Yeah, exactly.
The evidence is very clear.
Because the records are clear.
Yeah, I had the Speaker make that point. The Speaker is wrong on the matter. It's nothing close to that.
So Attorney General, in this 2026 budget, is receiving something in excess of
600 million. Yeah.
And the office of the...
150.
Yes. And the office, yes, it's 158.
Yeah, 158, yeah.
In excess of 158,
Yeah.
you understand? So for me, I think that we should have a deeper conversation. Let's look at it. What are the issues? We need to be able to decouple the SP from the OSP. Is it that...
So let's do that. I think that's a conversation we need to have. Is it the problem with the SP or is the problem with the OSP?
Yeah, I think the issues have been mixed up because, you see, if you look at the OSP himself, he may have engaged in a number of things that have not gone down well with the people, and there has been some agitations against him to the extent that some petitions have been sent to the presidency for his removal. So that is a different and distinct matter.
But what do you say as a vice chair of the committee?
Yeah, I think that, for me, I think that we should hasten slowly.
No. Is it the problem with the SP or the OSP?
Let me say that the SP has contributed to some of these issues that have come up. One of the major things, let me stress, is that, you know, there are some people who have made comments about the OSP, who have made some allegations.
The office?
No, against him personally.
Against the special prosecutor?
Exactly. Some allegations have been made against him. But the unfortunate thing is that the OSP turns out to invite these people and to question them and to probably arrest, investigate, and prosecute. And that would be like a breach of natural justice.
No. So this is the explanation, though. They say that if the police is accused of misconduct, it is PIPS that does investigations. Right. It is a body in the police service. They say if the immigration service, somebody misbehaves, is conducted, or you alleged, the misconduct is in there. Institutional. Yeah. So why do you expect that when the accusation is against the SP, you say you should go outside it to investigate? They must at least start is a misconduct allegation.
But the point is that this is a situation where it's not as if the matter has been referred to an independent institution within the OSP. This is a situation where the OSP has thrown an invitation to such people and tried to arrest and prosecute.
No, you see, let us clear. I'm just saying that because this is important. Martin Kpe wasn't arrested because he made the allegation. At least the OSP's officer says his arrest was because of obstruction when he had gone there to provide information on the allegations of corruption made against the SP. So in other words, you have alleged misconduct against the SP. We are looking into that allegation of misconduct. And then they claim that he obstructed the process. And so that, of course, is a crime or it's an offense under the OSP. I think so he arrested him for that. So there's a distinction there.
There's a distinction.
So that is the explanation that they put forward.
But you know, there is a general perception out there. There is a certain perception out there that the office sometimes is engaged in witch hunting and all that. I think those are perceptions that we should also try and address. So the way to go, of course, is to ensure that, like you said, these institutions within that are supposed to handle some of these allegations are strengthened to be able to do that. So that it doesn't look like it's the OSP himself who is inviting.
You know, let me pick the thoughts of Lawyer Sam Okudzeto on that point that you made. Uncle Sam, so you hear the SP say there's an allegation of corruption against the head of the institution as the special prosecutor, that he misconducted himself, he's corrupt. Then the institution then invites the individual in question. The SP, as we understand, recuses himself, but agents under him then invite the individual to come and provide the evidence, etc., to aid in their own internal inquiry. And some have suggested, I believe you also held the same view when we discussed it here, that the OSP cannot do that because it amounts to investigating itself. Well, where do you stand on that?
No, that is correct. I mean, it's quite obvious. If the allegation is made against me, then I need an independent person to investigate.
Even if he recuses himself from the process?
Oh yeah, completely. Completely. It's a complete, it's just not done. It is not justiciable. It is not fair. to himself and to the person that is involved in the matter. The person makes an allegation against me. My job is to do what? I'm holding a position. The allegation is made against me. All right, police or special branch, go and investigate the matter.
Right.
And then let the prosecutorial process deal with the individual. I'm only a witness. That's all there is to it. So sometimes we get so hasty. In fact, I think, Ghanaian, we are so sentimental that as soon as an allegation is made against me, it means that I must go and defend myself. And
means you are even guilty.
I said, it doesn't work that way. That allegation may be a perception. And there's a distinction between a perception and the reality. You know, that's the reason why you have the track. And the track, in fact, I was involved in the 19... And what I brought...
Pardon me, I understand that we need to fix something with your microphone. I'm going to take a quick break. We want to return. We would have fixed the microphone, and then we can hear some of Okudzetu's point on that question of whether the OSP can investigate the allegations against him. But I also want him to give me his thoughts on, okay, so if you fix the individual who has the institution, should you then keep the institution? Is it the problem with the institution or the two individuals who have held it so far? We have Martin Amidu, who resigned, and then we have Kise Jabin, who now has 3 cases, 3 petitions against him as far as the misconduct, etc. is concerned. Is that the solution to the problem? If it's not, what is a solution to the OSP problem? My guests will weigh in after this. And thank you very much for staying with us. My guest is still with me in the studio. Sam Okudzetu is lawyer. Nana Ejebafewa is a member of Parliament. He's also with the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee in Parliament. Mary Ada is Executive Director, Transparency International Ghana. And James Enu is the Vice Chair of the Constitutional Legal Affairs Committee. Uncle Sam, I was asking you earlier about this controversy around the accusation that were leveled against the Special Prosecutor that he was corrupt, and his institution is now investigating it. He himself has recused himself nonetheless. Do you think it's an investigation that can continue? The OSP can investigate these matters against?
I think it's an error in the sense that if the allegation is made against him, his institution cannot be investigating because those people are answerable to him. He has control over them. Whatever they do, they are going to exonerate him because they are not likely.
Isn't that an unfair assumption?
No. But I'm just saying that by normal human conduct, that's the way it should be. You cannot make allegation against me and I'm going to appoint some junior in my office to go and investigate the matter. Because that person will be scared of me, thinking that I will sack him. Or I will expose him. So it is just fair by the normal human standard to say that if the allegation is made against me, then let somebody else make that investigation so that I can either be exonerated or I'm found liable. I think this is the way it should be.
I wanted to ask you the question about the distinction between the office and the individual who occupies it. But before that, is it your position also that it should be scrapped, the institution?
I have maintained that the countries I have done international law, I have been associated with lawyers all around the globe. So I know what happens in many other countries. You understand? And I've studied comparative law. So the question I always ask myself was that we are so hasty that when we want to do something, because I heard the lady they're talking about that to Sierra Leone, and so I was laughing. And I said, those are not the countries we should go and be studying. Those are not the countries that we should go and be studying. Those countries, they are rather wanted to copy us. You understand? When something happens, we should also look around the globe and see. You can look at Britain, you can look at Germany, you can look at France.
So we don't need the OSP, is your position?
That is my position.
Okay, we don't need
to
the
say
OSP.
that none of the other has something like this that I am aware of. You understand? But they are able to govern themselves. They are able to clean things that happen. I mean, you see recently, when you watch the countries, you see, they say this minister have been removed or changed. It's been happening all around the globe.
Yeah.
Why? Because something has gone wrong with what the person is doing. That's the reason why those things happen. I'm not talking about just shuffle of cabinet. I'm talking about outright dismissal.
Yeah, sometimes even the sitting president or the prime minister is actually jailed and prosecuted.
Exactly.
Let me ask you, what about is it the problem with the institution or the occupier of the head of the institution?
Well, it could be both.
Okay.
Because
in this particular case,
I don't know, because I'm saying that I don't know this individual very well.
Okay.
I mean, I heard he's a senior lawyer, but I have never had any encounter with him, so I don't know him. That's the truth of the matter. Perhaps even if I see him in public, unless somebody introduced him to me, I wouldn't know. So the question would be that I'm saying that the kind of acumen that is required for some of these jobs, we have not been doing it. Because I think I was telling you earlier on that a lawyer is not an administrator, because that's not part of the curriculum of the law school. And therefore, if a lawyer has to go and do an administrative job, he either needed some exposure to that level, you understand, or he might have to be humble enough to get someone who is really experienced in administration and give that person the latitude to guide him as to what he should do. This is why the whole confusion is arising. Because, for example, this question we're talking about, when somebody made an allegation against you, then you went and you arrest the person, then you say you should pay a bribe. To pay her what? Bail. And then you say the bail must be personal. Now, that's illegal. It's absolutely illegal. If you're a lawyer, you should know that you cannot tell the person that bail must be from you. Am I a multi-billionaire? No. You want a bail.
This is my show landed properties, I guess.
No, but the question is that we do it in the court all the time. You give security. You get someone who will come and pledge his document as security for you. After all, what is the question of the bail? It's only to ensure that you appear when you are needed. That's all, nothing more than that. So you don't show power. You don't show exhibit power. Okay, I better put that way. You don't go and exhibit power to show that you have power. No, power must be used in moderation, in a way and manner that people can applaud you.
And Gusan, let me tap into this. So if it's not the office of the special prosecutor, what then must we do to deal with the corruption problem?
I am saying that corruption has become a cancer which is infecting virtually every institution that we have in the country. This is my own observation over the years.
So how do we deal with it? Because you said the OSP is not the answer.
Yes, I'm saying that.
What must we do then?
Exactly. If you want to create institutions to help, then you have to do it carefully. You have to be able to study. That's why I'm saying that don't even sit down in isolation. Look around the other country and find out. Pick. I mentioned Singapore earlier on. You know what? If you like, you can go pick in Africa. You can pick Rwanda and see how that country, which was devastated completely by law, but now has become the showpiece that anyone who goes there and comes back reports about what you can see there. Everything is, to use vernacular, pepepe.
No.
Cleanliness, order. I mean, you just cannot describe it. And the question is that if they can do it, what is to prevent us from doing it?
Yeah.
Are they, Rwanda people, are they any more intelligent than we are? After all, we were the one everybody comes to study before, isn't it?
Yeah.
We were the showpiece in Africa. Everybody was copying us. Everybody was even admiring us. That you see Ghanaian, when you put him in a position like that, he becomes a showpiece. You see Kofi Annan. I mean, everywhere you go, you see him and the admiration that they have for him. And that admiration has even rubbed on some of us as well also. Because when I also go to places like that, because they know I'm from Kofi Annan's country, they give me the same respect. Okay.
And Nana, so you've stated your position on what must happen. Parliament has a role. From what I understand, the House wants to invite the OSP Is that going to happen?
I'm not too sure. It was the chief whip
who mentioned it.
But let me say something here. Our understanding of the fight against corruption is very key to the fight against corruption. We seem not to be clear what we are fighting and how we should be fighting it. When you hear a member of parliament cry about corruption, you ask yourself, what did that member of parliament do when the budget and indeed appropriation came to him or the committee for consideration? That is the beginning of the fight against corruption. I just asked my brother, when the OSP appeared before the Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee and asked them to recommend to the plenary for approval the sum of 158 million, ask him if he found out from the OSP the number of employees he has.
He has, that's right.
I asked him last year when he appeared before our committee, and there wasn't a categorical figure.
Why? But he must know, he employs them.
So the point is that we, Parliament, seems to be failing in our oversight responsibilities. I would suggest that, you know, the Constitution says that the budget must be either program-based or activity-based. I think that for proper oversight, the budget should be activity-based. Right. So that we are able to compare with what is happening on the market, right? I think there should be reforms to the way budgets are presented to the House. It allows for better oversight. If it comes in the form of a program, it's difficult in evaluating it as compared to when it is an activity-based.
Your solution to the corruption problem is what, if not OSP?
If not, we already have a lot of institutions. You see, the fight against corruption...
So why are you anchoring it? Though? There must be an anchor institution.
We have a lot of anchor institutions.
Too many
we just have to strengthen them.
But isn't that the problem? That is dissipated, right? So you have Shraj dealing with something, Attorney General doing something, Yoko dealing with... Then you needed an arrowhead.
Then OSP even makes it worse. Because the very things OSP is dealing with...
Same thing.
The Attorney General is not precluded from dealing with it. Indeed, the OSP is exercising part of the powers of the Attorney General. So it has no power to even tell the Attorney General that don't do what I'm doing.
So your suggestion is to strengthen Attorney General, strengthen Yoko,
strengthen Attorney General, strengthen Yoko, strengthen Shraj.
By doing what exactly? Giving them more money?
Give them enough resources. Give them enough resources. Look, if you look at an institution like the Right to Information Commission, it is the light on public service. When the Right to Information Commission is strengthened and access to information through the right to information is made easier, right? Everybody will set up because I can access, for instance, the budget of Petroleum Commission. I can access the procurement plan of the Petroleum Commission or Ghana Gas or GMPC. I can access their budget. I can access their procurement plan. I will be able to tell how much they've budgeted for one activity or the other. I'll be able to tell that what is the market comparables and see whether it is an exaggeration of the cost.
So you say also strengthening the commission. I have a couple of them. Let me bring in Mary. Mary, so you want to keep the OSP, but you also admit that it still has challenges. So what must change with the OSP for it to remain relevant?
So, Evans, before I get to what must change, I want to make a correction to what Uncle Sam said. We didn't just do Sierra Leone, but also remember that Sierra Leone has made some very significant progress when it comes to building their institutions after the very devastating war there. Uncle Sam talks about Rwanda. We don't see Rwanda as the best example if it comes to perhaps the law, because you know the architecture there. If you take out the system as it is now, would it remain as robust as it is? But I mentioned places like Kenya, places like South Africa. These are examples, and we also draw from the American and the British examples, because our democracy is shaped around these two. So for me, that is it. And we did extensive work to come to the conclusions we came to, and we still stand by those. We believe that the people of Ghana should stand by that. But what must happen is the fact that citizens must be more proactive in demanding accountability, standing on the systems that have been provided, like Honorable indicated, the RTI. How are we utilizing the request for freedom of information to ensure that whatever information the citizen needs comes to them? Again, we need to, like he talked about budgets, I am talking about KPIs. We need to ensure that in the budgets there are deliverables. The appointing authority must insist on this before every approval is made, before it even goes to Parliament. I know the Ministry of Finance will take all these and then goes into the budget process before appropriation. And I've been to budget hearings and heard questions coming out. And this year, I must admit, some of those have been very thorough. The one I've been to has been very thorough. If we have Parliament oversight over some of these institutions as robust as what I have seen, and then they put in place benchmarks to monitor performance over time, then any lapse in the institution's part on not delivering would be curtailed, because they know there is an oversight body sitting, waiting patiently to score them on what they've been able to do. We cannot afford to continue to disburse amounts and then not give them also. And so I come to say that whatever we say we are giving the people to work, please let us give it to them. We cannot say budgets are estimates, and so budgets will be estimates, and we give people 50% of that. That is not workable. And then the issue around politicization of our independent bodies, where we decide to draw the strings from behind and not allow them to do their work. I believe it's time to let go of some of those. So the political machinations and the capture of our independent institutions must stop. They can only stop, Evans, if
you believe the OSP. You believe the OSP has been captured politically?
Oh, not now. But you realize that Martin Amidu made the same allegations. Kisi has been on record to sing Ankwa Numa and other songs of what he is going through. And so these remain very valid allegations they made, even though myself and you, we may not have been there to see what is happening. But this time around, I am saying that let's ensure that we are not doing that. If we are able to do that, then for me, I believe the watchdog role of civil society and also the media remains very critical and relevant.
And Vice Chair, you have the final word on this. Yes, in terms of the solution, very, very briefly, what would you propose?
Before then, let me say that it's also important to bring to the fore some achievements of the Special Prosecutor over the year under review. This is very important because some impressions has been created.
And they publish a few, 7 convictions, 33 persons currently standing trial, 1 case on appeal. He says that is a vote buying one. 6 new prosecutions initiated in 2025 alone. They have 2 investigations ongoing, 71 cases at full investigation stage, and on and on and on that they publish.
67 ongoing investigations.
So this is an update over the last 24 hours. They pushed this. I'm pretty sure this is...
If you look at the recoveries for the nation, they did $2 million and also 6,506,198 Ghana cedis for the year under review. So I think that...
When it came to Parliament, this wasn't stated in Parliament.
They recover from...
No, this is...
Where did you get the information from?
This is on the report for the Constitutional and Legal Committee, which was presented to Parliament for approval.
When was this?
This was last...
This is part of the justification for the budgetary?
Yes, this is the report, official report that was presented to Parliament.
As in the OSP's report?
Exactly.
Which they are mandated to put out?
Yes.
Okay.
So this is an official document that was presented to Parliament and it was approved.
Okay.
It was based on this report that we approved the allocation. So in the area of recoveries, I think the OSP has also done something by recovering some monies, dollars, and some CD for the state. And I think that if we resource the institution, they can do better. For me, I think that the way to go is to, first of all, see if we can resource it and empower it, build capacity for it. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect of it probably will be to see how we can merge it with the office of the DPP. So that if we can change the architecture, like Auntie Mary said, by decoupling the office of the Attorney General from Minister of Justice, and then probably add the OSP to the DPP. And then I think something...
But how do you do that without abolishing the office?
Yes, I agree with you that before we can do that, we need to abolish the office.
Exactly.
We can,
yeah, you cannot merge.
But there has been this concern that has been argued over the years.
Briefly.
That once we have an AG prosecuting his colleagues or members of the executive, it's always problematic. The political will is always not there.
Yeah.
And therefore, if we are trying to back out from the office of the OSP, then we need to ensure that there must be an independent institution. That is key. The independence is key.
Yeah.
So that institution will be insulated, will not be pressured by anybody or any institution to toe a certain line. I think these are the issues that...
Okay, thank you very much. Bafo, I'm grateful. Again, I've just run out of time.
Independence.
Yeah.
When the head of the institution is appointed by the president,
that raises questions, and I think Uncle Sam raised it earlier. Uncle Sam, thanks for joining us with your thoughts, and Vice Chair, I'm grateful. You also, and then Bafo and Mary, enjoy the rest of your evening.